This is the Automotive Repair Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of Speak Up Effective Communication, the show on the Automotive Repair Podcast Network, focused on our communication and our leadership skills. I am your host, Craig O'Neill, and in our episode today, well, it's that time of year again. It's New Year's resolutions that are just around the corner, and if you're like most shop owners, or the ones I talk to on a regular basis, implementing a formal quality control process has probably been on that list before, maybe more than once, but it is our resolution. I really want to see more shops adopt quality control. Here's the problem. Most shops either never start or they start and it falls apart within about a month. And I want to tell you why that happens as I see it. And more importantly, how to make this year have your quality control actually stick. So here's what I do know. Over 90% of shops that I talk to, they have no documented quality control process. None. They have good people, good revenue, good reviews, but no formal written quality control system. And the shops that do try to implement one, they do it wrong sometimes when they first start, which is why oftentimes it simply doesn't last. I could show you statistics on the volume of quality control versus regular inspections that occur. And I do mean quality control in usually the final part of a visit or at middle points of the visit. So today I'm going to show you what real quality control might actually look like and why your previous attempts failed and how a parking lot problem in Sydney, Australia taught me the most important lesson about communicating your quality control process to clients. So before we dive in and talk about a resolution that I do believe will actually change your shop, we have a word of the day, and that word is systemic. We'll define that word for you after we hear a word from our sponsors who make this show possible. Looking to take your shop to the next level of quality service, team culture, and overall profitability? At the Institute, we provide personalized coaching that aligns with your goals of financial stability, excellent customer service, and employee satisfaction. Our priority is helping you establish significant and sustainable progress. We work with you to create strategies that reduce the stress of running your business, improve your quality and performance, and optimize your profitability. Experience the benefits of professional coaching by visiting wearetheinstitute.com/business-assessment. Hey friends, as you know, I'm a proud member of the AutoFlow team, and let me tell you, we've changed how business is done for auto shops everywhere. We support your client experience before, during, and after the work is done. Imagine this. Timely updates sent directly to your clients, branded digital vehicle inspections, and seamless communication from start to finish. That's why shops love AutoFlow. And hey, with those 5-star reviews rolling in, you'll wonder how you ever managed without us. Take an important next step and take your auto shop to the next level. Visit www.autoflow.com. Get on board with an AutoFlow trial. Want to see your auto repair shop thrive? Are you looking to drive more customers to your auto repair shop? Let ShopDog Marketing be your guide. Our customer-first approach, combined with AI-driven creative content, ensures top rankings. Dominate mobile first and voice search with our specialized expertise. Reach out to ShopDog Marketing today and start growing your business. Don't miss out on this chance to boost your business. Visit shopdogmarketing.com. Inbound has exclusively served independent auto repair shops with expert communication solutions for years. Our robust VoIP platform ensures you stay connected while our industry-leading AI analytics take your business to the next level. We provide the tools you need to understand your customers and optimize every interaction. Choose Inbound for proven expertise and unmatched innovation. Visit callinbound.com and discover the difference we can make. Okay, we're back, and the word of the day is systemic. It is an adjective. The definition is relating to or affecting an entire system rather than isolated parts, problems or solutions that are fundamental to how something operates. as a whole. An example would be like quality control issues in our industry aren't random, they're systemic, which means they do require systematic solutions. All right. Let's talk about something that I call the assumption of good function. I blogged on this for AutoFlow back in August of 2022, which I'll link into the show notes later for you as well. It's a quick read. In this blog, I simply cite that most people live their lives blissfully unaware of how complex the system around them actually are. And it could be any system. They assume things work, their phone, their refrigerator, their car, they just work. And when something breaks, it's shocking sometimes and genuinely surprising, depending on what the device is. So this assumption of good function, I feel, extends even really to massive undertakings like NASA, space missions. Bit of a space nerd on a lot of things, but it's almost routine when you watch these missions go off without a hitch over and over and over again, unless maybe it's a SpaceX mission. But sure, yes, NASA problems can arise too, but you always have this thought that smart people are there, they're preventing issues from occurring. And so you have a high degree of confidence in these things going off very, very well. They have systems for this. They have systems. That's in our mind. I think it's an assumption that clients carry towards auto repair shops as well. They actually do have systems for it. NASA, it's absolutely true. They do have systems for automotive manufacturers. It's also true. They have documented quality control processes in the manufacturing assembly line process for a vehicle. Here's my question for you. How would you grade the quality control systems in automotive repair broadly, and more specifically in your shop? I routinely ask shop owners if they have documented quality control process, and I'll tell you again, over 90% of the time, and I mean over 90%, the answer is no. No documented process, no formal systems. Now, often these same shops have no workflow documentation at all. And given that reality, it's not really a surprise that the types of quality control issues that we see throughout our industry are remarkably similar from one shop to the other. But I think that the problems we face aren't random. They're systemic. And that's, of course, our word of the day. When most people think about quality control in a shop, they picture that final moment right before the client picks up their vehicle, that final dipstick check, look underneath, make sure it's clean, road test it, check that one more last time there. And yeah, it's a part of it. In reality, there actually should be multiple phases throughout a vehicle visit that involve this quality control, and there should be checkpoints along the way. So here's how I like to frame this with shops. Picture a successful visit. How do you define success? Now, years ago, and I quote him all the time, my coach, Bob Greenwood, he taught me to define and communicate what a successful visit looks like. He taught me our job, our professional responsibilities to make sure the vehicle's safe, reliable, and efficient. That's our job. And he always added that last bit on there. We won't let you down, Mr. Client. We won't let you down. And that's a powerful statement, that we won't let you down. He would echo this all the time. We won't let you down. Well, the reality is achieving that promise requires process. It requires the full participation of every single staff member on our team. Full participation, folks, NASA level. By the way, before I go on, if you download the new Automotive Repair Podcast Network app on the Apple or Android Play, Google Play Store, Bob Greenwood series, Second Thoughts, is now available to listen there. Rest in peace, Bob. I'm glad we have his words. So, okay, let's go back to NASA for a minute, because I'm going to go space nerd with you all for a little bit. And I think this should properly blow your mind if you reflect on some of these things, if you haven't studied this stuff. But back when you remember the team that was working on that James Webb Space Telescope, that was pretty cool. And we still get to see really neat images on that thing from time to time. The team that was working on it had pre-identified 344 single point failures. A single point failure, if you're talking to NASA folk or anyone in that sort of engineering world, that would be something that if any one of those things went wrong, that pretty much ends the 11.5-year project within the first couple weeks of the mission or immediately. 344 ways it could completely fall apart. And knowing that those risks existed, the web team worked to prevent them. They had systems, they had checkpoints, they had quality control built in to every single phase. That awareness of the potential problems was significant, and they don't ignore them. And knowing this sort of thing is exactly why I love missions. Now, go back a little further, and I vividly recall one of my favorite lifetime moments of watching space missions was definitely that JPL Sky Crane mission for the Curiosity rover. Think back, this is back August 2012. And go look it up, folks. I did before I recorded this podcast, and I rewatched that sequence in that mission control room, and it's profoundly powerful. It's the mission control scene you all know, that moment when confirmation comes and it was spoken. Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars. And mission control erupts into cheers, tears, applause. The tension washes away. It's a sea of high fives. It's hugs. It's handshakes. This for me is moving. It brings a tear to my eye every time I watch one of those things. Absolutely breathtakingly, astonishingly awesome. And what makes it moving is the complete lack of assumption of good function, right? Moments before that celebration, same scene, you see the mission control team hyper focused on their workstations. It's headsets on, hawkishly vigilant, looking for any indicator of a problem. That's really amazing. And they are prepared to engage solutions at a moment's notice based on, I can't even imagine how many variables. That celebration that comes after is a celebration of teamwork and systems working together. And this is what I want you to think about. Every mission in our auto repair shops involves a human life on board. I was moved by this robotic mission. But look, like conventionally, our success, it's only realized, if noticed at all, weeks later when we simply don't hear from a client who had visited us in the past. No news is good news. We don't get the mission control moment in our industry. There are rarely cheers, I suspect, maybe not never, when a vehicle drives down the road. So this, to me, it shouldn't be surprising. The process of an automotive visit seems pretty routine on the surface, and thankfully it really is. But I'm going to argue that vehicle repair today is about as routine as it is for SpaceX to put a satellite into orbit. And another thing would be, I do believe the perceived complexity of what we work on has very little to do with the processes we could use to ensure their success. In terms of managing the systems and processes, we do enjoy parity, at least potential parity, with NASA, with Formula One race teams, right? The medical institutions. We lack nothing that these high performance organizations have access to. Our trouble comes chiefly from our desire to formalize these processes, our desire to educate our teams on why this matters, and our desire to actually document and follow through. So why do quality control attempts fail in most shops? All right, let me tell you the patterns that I see. First, shops think QC only happens at the end. Final inspection only. They miss all the critical checkpoints during the repair process itself. Second, when they do implement a quality control checklist, they treat it like a grading system. Check marks that are green mean good job, we can move on. They're looking for a pass-fail, not continuous improvements. And third, I see people afraid to document mistakes. Tugs at my Toastmasters experience too. Anytime you're giving critical feedback or growing potential, it's uncomfortable for a lot of us. Nobody wants to be the bad guy who points out errors. Nobody wants to create a blame culture, certainly not what we're advocating for. So issues get quietly fixed and basically erased from the record. They never get tracked. And so you never actually get to know what your quality control process is actually catching. And so this is why resolutions fail for this process. I feel like the value is often missed in those elements. So if you've approached QC as a final inspection pass-fail system instead of what it actually needs to be, which is a learning and improvement tool that spans the entire repair process for your whole team, there's a clue. All right. So, what I see quality control actually looking like in practice, there's actually two distinct types of QC checkpoints that I believe are important. The first one is quality checks during a repair at all critical intervals, and that looks different for different jobs. And number two is final pre delivery inspection before the customer picks up the vehicle, typically performed by an owner or an advisor or someone from the front counter staff, or an individual whose sole function in the organization is a quality control. So lots of ways to do it. But I want to talk about that first one, that during the repair critical interval piece. This is where I spent most of my time when I was in the shop. A large portion of my career was a pre-digital era, right? In my days working, not yet running the transmission shop, when I was installing transaxles or transmissions, and there came a point, especially on front drive with the transaxles, there came a point where I would always call a technician to come and look over the work. For example, if I were about to install the subframe, a lot of the vehicles, when you install the subframe, you cover up a lot of the element of the powertrain, a lot of the connectors and plugs, or maybe missing brackets or missing bolts, or you name it. So we would have a look over. We'd call another repair specialist over, and they would look at the situation. They'd grab their flashlight. They're looking for any kind of mistake that they can possibly find. And we wouldn't proceed until they gave us a green light. We didn't always document that part of the process, but it is a profoundly powerful place to start developing some QC. The challenge becomes, it's different on every single vehicle and every different job. To try to develop checklists for some of those things is very challenging. But missing bolts, missing clips, missing connectors, you can start tracking things like that and start celebrating the victory of finding the problems. It is a victory to find the problem, because why would I win if someone found a problem on my work? It meant I won't have to undo a whole bunch of other work to go and fix the problem in areas that might be hard or impossible to reach once we've covered it up. It was to my own advantage, and everybody knew that, and it became the culture in the shop. And we were kind of jerks about it after a while too, in a funny way. We would basically not give up looking for something until we found something super nitpicky. I think we were putting vehicles out better than the factory after a while. Hey, your shop might not do transmission work. That's fine. I would say that every major repair has some single point failure that can lead to a catastrophe or just general disappointment for clients. Timing belt jobs before you button up the front of the engine, dashboard removal for HVAC work, horrible jobs, never fun. Before the dash goes back in, someone's looking things over. The last thing you want to do is pull that all apart. Oh, it's miserable. Brake jobs before the wheel goes back on. Having someone, a senior technician, senior specialist, looking over that work, that's the principle. You get the idea. Now, where it gets interesting, the part that a lot of times people who are trying to do this will get wrong, is that when you do these checks, I, again, will emphasize the need to document them. Is not just a checkbox that says, yep, we did it. Make an actual form. When you find something that needs correction, a missing bolt, a connector, not fully seated, anything, you mark it red, you leave it red, you note the issue, you note which technician had the fault, and then that you addressed it. It's not the blame game. What's critical here is that this becomes an internal document. We're not sharing this piece externally for communication with the clients. This is for your shop's eyes only. Customer never sees this. Client never sees this. So I know what a lot of people are thinking, even in this moment. Craig, that sounds like a blame game. Sounds like we're creating a culture where people get in trouble for making mistakes. This is going to take too long. I assure you, it does not take too long. It takes mere minutes, and it saves so much more time than it ever cost you. But that's not what all of this is. The long road to this tie-in, there's a simple piece of communication that occurs internally in the shop that needs to happen when you catch something on any quality control check or look over. And it's really just this: good job. We caught it, not the client. It's not about wagging your finger at all. This is to be praised that our systems and processes are strong enough to catch problems before they snowball into bigger problems or embarrassment or lost revenue, you name it, right? This isn't about condemnation. It's about correction and improvement. It's about pattern recognition. Now, if the same specialist does keep missing, the same type of issues keep happening, we may have a character flaw, and we've really identified an opportunity for coaching, is what I would hope to take away from that. If there is consistency in the same types of mistakes, we've stagnated in other ways. But red marks on your QC form are not failures, they're catches, and they are wins. Okay, I'll add to this. The goal is not perfection. You can make the goal perfection, but you will never be perfect. The goal is catching imperfections that we all know exist in every shop, any human being who's involved in work. Truly, in our AI age, even machines make mistakes. Now, I want to wrap this up with me telling you a little bit more about a parking lot in Sydney, Australia. Earlier this year, it was awesome. I had the opportunity to visit our new AutoFlow clients in Sydney, Australia. Amazing trip, by the way. If you do ever get the chance to visit Sydney, it's an awesome place, awesome people. Aussies are awesome, right? They're just tons of fun. And they have decorum when necessary. I'm going to throw that in there too. But this particular shop we're at was piloting the program. We learned it had a pretty serious parking problem. And they were in an area, just the limited space, customer vehicles. A lot of you can resemble this. I know our shop, we struggled with parking for a long time as well. When cars were ready for pickup, they needed customers to come and get them promptly. Otherwise, they'd have vehicles stacked up, nowhere to put incoming work. And now I try not to talk about AutoFlow on this program too much, but they are sponsors of the program and it is my day job. And we have great systems and workflow statuses specifically for quality control. And listen, we do have the ability to send an automated text message to clients when their vehicle moves into that quality control status based on a bunch of cool automations and everything else. It's great. But for years and years here in the US, when I onboarded shops, I advised not to text on that quality control status. It would just sort of silently move into the status and we'd see that that's the status it's in. Why? Why would I do this? Because clients would see your vehicles in quality control or some other text message related to that. And they assumed that it meant, well, I better head on down to the shop and pick up my vehicle. And my last name's O'Neill, folks. We've been in a long time war with the Murphy's Law. You've heard of it. Yeah. If something can go wrong, it will. And if we have a client that's on the way that thinks the car is ready for pickup and we're still finishing our QC checks, what do you think happens under Murphy's Law? Well, if they're here in the building ready to pay us money, and I mean, we literally would yell at any of the service managers or advisors who would ever take payment before the vehicle was back from the road test. That was a sin. You never do that. Every time that happened, I swear, every time something went wrong with that vehicle and it was postponed for delivery, it was awful. But that's exactly what happened, right? Clients there, you can almost anticipate problems going to occur. Car would come back with some embarrassing smoke from a transmission line. Now it's on the exhaust and it looks just terrible when the car's rolling in, the client's scratching their head and it's embarrassing. We didn't like it, right? Now, that wasn't super common. It just seemed like it was always the case if someone was there. Bottom line is that really changed how I advised communication on that status. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect before I send the message that we're ready for the customer to come in. That is deeply ingrained in my psyche. Probably some trauma there. I don't know. Now, when I was telling this to the Australians and I was making the point about, yeah, clients showing up too quick, they didn't hear that as a problem. They hear clients showing up quick. They see their parking lot problem. They did not follow my advice. And I'm so glad they didn't because their results were great. So this parking problem, right? They turned on the text notification when it goes into the QC status, and they're doing a great job on the QCs in many locations here. They figured if the client shows up more quickly, that's going to solve the problem. And that's exactly what happened. Not only did clients come and get their cars more promptly, solving the parking situation, they started giving the shop some incredible feedback. Messages started to come back to them in the text that said, hey, that's great. Thanks for checking it over. My other mechanic doesn't do that. And there were other messages along the same line. Oh, thank you. No one else looks the vehicle over when they're done with things and little stuff like that. Right. And when I started hearing this feedback from them, it hit me with like a ton of bricks. For years, clients asked me when I was service advising, they'd be signing and they'd be like, oh, did you road test it? It's like, what do you mean, did we road test it? Of course we road tested it. Why wouldn't we road test it? What? That's a silly question, right? It's not a silly question. They don't know about our systems and processes. They don't know. that we're doing quality control. So this is what I learned, right? When you tell them your vehicle's in quality control, you're not just giving them a status update. You're actually demonstrating you have formal processes that they don't know you have. You're showing them that you're different from other mechanics. You are a specialist. You are a professional that does quality control. And that's just it. That's the full picture of how QC communication can work. Internally, it's about developing our team. Externally, it's about setting ourselves apart. Good job, right? We caught it, not the client. Client gets to know that we're doing this stuff. It's beautiful. The truth is the clients don't know unless you tell them. And I guess internally, the truth also is you don't know what your QC process is catching unless you're documenting it. So tying it all together, you have everything NASA has. You have the tools, you have the talent, you have access to the same kinds of systematic approaches that high performance organizations use. What you might be missing is the desire to formalize it. It's to actually document your quality control process, to use the forms. Digital is best, thanks to the reporting, especially use it to communicate both internally and externally. So this year, and I mean starting whenever you hear this episode, I want you to make this a resolution that sticks. Identify your quality control checkpoints, not just the final inspection. Where do your specialists need to learn to call another team member over for a look over? And then 2, create actual QC forms, not mental checklists. You can reach out to me. I have forms. I will share them with you. It's not just that we're trying to be careful. This is actually actual documentation, red marks for catches, names for accountability, notes for learning, show it's addressed. Really good stuff. And then 3, change the internal communication around mistakes. Red marks are wins, catches are celebrations. We got it before the client did. That's the gist. And number 4, tell your clients about your quality control process. Text them when their vehicle enters that process. It's proven to be a delighter. Make those vehicles safe, reliable, and efficient, folks. Don't let them down. As Bob Greenwood would say, that promise does require systems. It requires full participation from your team, and it requires the desire to actually formalize what you're probably already trying to do informally, to be fair. But when clients do drive away from your shop, you should have earned the right to celebrate, not because you got lucky, but because your system worked. That's the quality control resolution that sticks. So thank you for listening to this episode of Speak Up Effective Communication. If you found this valuable, please share it with another shop owner who needs to hear it. And if you implement a formal QC process this year, I want to hear about it. Reach out to me. Let me know how it goes. Something else to add, something you're curious about, something you'd like to talk about, email me here, speakup@craigoneil.net. That's ONEILL.net. We appreciate hearing from you on anything that helps or suggestions on topics you'd like to hear us discuss on the show that will help you on your communication journey. And remember, listen up to the other shows on the Automotive Repair Podcast Network. Remarkable Results Radio with Carm Capriato, Diagnosing the Aftermarket A through Z with Matt Fonslow, Business by the Numbers with Hunt Demarest, the Auto Repair Marketing Podcast with Brian and Kim Walker, and the Weekly Blitz with Coach Chris Cotton. Once again, thank you to our sponsors at the Institute, AutoFlow, Inbound, and ShopDog Marketing. We appreciate you joining us on helping to develop communication standards in this industry. Thank you to our loyal listeners for joining us. Now get out there, listen up, speak quality.
You've been listening to Speak Up Effective Communication with Craig O'Neill on the Automotive Repair Podcast Network. Download our exclusive podcast app at automotiverepairpodcastnetwork.com because the best conversations in the industry start here. Check the show notes for Craig's YouTube channel and email. Let him know what topics you'd like him to speak up about.